Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the English Shooting live stream. I will, of course, be your host, Callum, this evening. Thank you so much for joining. For all the regulars, you know what the deal is. For anybody new or anybody that can't usually make it on a Thursday and are joining us on this lovely Friday evening, then welcome. Thanks for stopping by. This is an opportunity to talk about all the week's past shooting news and topics, ask questions, have your opinions heard, and talk about everything and anything surrounding firearms and beyond. We do tend to stray off piste quite a bit, but please do get involved. Please use the chat box if you are watching this live. We won't bite. All opinions, even if they're wrong, are welcome. I like to debate and attack problems from every angle, and it's only by doing that and by having these conversations with opposing views how we reach a sensible middle ground sometimes. But most importantly, don't forget to hit that like button and make sure you are subscribed, because I think I can start calling this a weekly live stream again, apart from the fact that next week it's unlikely I'll be doing a live stream. I may get onto that in a little bit. But yes, apologies that we weren't able to do it on the usual Thursday. There's no real rhyme and reasons to why the stream is on a Thursday. I think that's just what originally worked best for myself and Connors. And then obviously it's just myself and I'm a creature of habit. So it was a Thursday, but family engagements last night. I didn't want to rule out the stream for this week, so we moved it to the Friday. So hello, the new Friday crowd, and I can see there are some regulars that have carried over from the usual Thursday. So thanks for being as flexible as possible. Tonight's stream, I do unfortunately need to initially caveat, because I know these sorts of questions like to descend in all sorts of directions, and there are some directions that, whilst I believe the discussion of any viewpoint should not work against you, that's not how our firearms licensing departments work. So this is not a discussion, advocacy, promotion, or otherwise of concealed carry, of an armed populace in that sense, and you know what sense I mean, or even getting on to the topics of self-defense. This is purely looking at some very interesting statistics and arming ourselves with the facts and figures to be able to fight misinformation, misinformed individuals, and people that want to continue attacking our sport with the notion that more guns equal more crime, and that by just having guns, we are all at a greater risk of being hurt by one or threatened by one. And the statistics that I managed to stumble upon, really, although they are from the Office for National Statistics, they've been put in a nice presented report. It's purely just equipping ourselves with the necessary tools to be able to have a logical, factual conversation about things and dispel this myth that just because more people own firearms, there is necessarily more crime. So the report that I'm talking about is done by a website called Get Licensed, and I don't actually think they are anything to do with firearms licensing or certification, but yeah, it's pretty apt that they're talking about firearm certificates and licensing and all of that. But again, regardless of whether this is a reputable source or not, all of the facts and figures are coming from the Office for National Statistics. So the facts and figures and statistics here and the data is sort of ironclad. It is from a reputable source. Office for National Statistics is run by the government, or it is a civil service. So take that as you will. But the real crux of it is that they end up breaking down, and there's some really interesting headlines here. You know, the West Midlands Police Force has recorded more firearm offences than any other area of the UK, with more than 200 per 100,000 people. That's still, I think that's 0.5%. Even where the most crime is committed with firearms, it is incredibly unlikely that you are ever going to be exposed to it. So there's sort of nugget number one, is if you want. There may be a lot of nuggets. It might be a 24 box this evening. But the real sort of first interesting, just I'm sure with all of you watching this from all over the country and some even all over the world, you're probably looking at yourselves thinking about going on Rightmove right now and finding somewhere else to live. Fortunately, yeah, I am nowhere near these hotspots, which is very nice. But I'm sure some of you may be unfortunate enough to be located in these areas. So these are the the top locations done by county with the most firearm offences, with the West Midlands taking a clear win in that regard, if you can really call it a win. No surprise that we're looking at the Metropolitan Police at number 2. That's London. A little bit surprised about sort of Yorkshire. I always thought they were, stand up, tea drinking gentlemen up that way, but there seems to be a few nefarious individuals. Of course, Greater Manchester doesn't really come as surprise, neither does Merseyside, Northamptonshire. You're getting sort of, the bottom of the Midlands. To be honest, anything north of Cambridge is the north, and the Midlands just gets forgotten about. But Northamptonshire, yeah, the little surprised by that. Bedfordshire, again, a little bit surprised. Cleveland, yeah, maybe not so much. Essex, again, with the proximity to London and being quite a big city, not a huge surprise there. Again, we're talking about a fifth of a percent, 0.2% out of 100,000 people. So this isn't anything to get worried about, and this is the worst of the worst. But what is very, very interesting is that they also give a nice little league table of the top 10 police force areas with the most firearm/shotgun certificate holders. And I know a lot of you are furiously trying to remember exactly the counties that we were just looking at so that you can try and compare them. I've got you covered. Don't worry, I'm prepared. So don't be scratching your noggins too much for that. But what strikes me straight away about these is how sort of rural a lot of them are. I mean, you could, well, a lot of them are mostly sort of out in the sticks, countryside, rural areas, not really near major cities or have major cities within them. Which again, if any of you, well, those of you from the UK, will probably come as no surprise. The old, I don't know, not adage, but the the old sort of stereotype of farmers always being strapped, that seems to very much hold water. But what is really interesting is when you put these two side by side. So again, we are looking at the counties with the highest firearm crime and the and the counties with the highest firearms ownership. And as you can see, there is not a single county that features in the highest firearms ownership or highest number of certificate holders versus the counties with the most firearm offences. And actually using the map, you can see where it seems to sort of congregate around this sort of diagonal line across the country, other than Lincolnshire, which is sort of a little bit odd, seeing as it's seemingly right next door to Northamptonshire and Bedfordshire, and yet it's doesn't have the crime issue. So as an outlier there, and maybe you could say Cleveland is an outlier from this diagonal line. The areas of high firearms ownership are all on the outskirts of that line. They're following sort of two diagonal lines perpendicular to that the crime line. We're going to call it the certificate lines and the crime line. There's no correlation there. And whether you want to take it from the highest firearms ownership areas versus the highest crime, or you just want to visualize that on this map, there is absolutely no correlation between increased certificate numbers or increased certificate holders and firearm offences. And again, this is where this conversation tends to descends into this whole, the main discussion point is obviously outside of the UK, mainly in America, is the right to bear arms, self-defense, concealed carry, and all of that, to make sure that you can protect yourselves, family, and others. Now, it's easy to start jumping on that bandwagon and start going, oh, this is why everybody should own guns, because it obviously deters crime. But the landscape of firearms ownership in the UK is not about that. We literally cannot own firearms for any other purpose than collecting, for sporting, target shooting, or for hunting. So it's not the case. And whilst there are occurrences of lawful firearms owners using those firearms for not, let's say, their intended purposes, those cases are incredibly rare, and they themselves are outliers. So this is not a case of the more firearms that are owned, the more certificates that are being held by people, is proactively deterring crime. A lot of criminals here, a lot of people here don't even know that you can own firearms legally. So therefore, it's not that deterrent. I think what this again goes back to is the whole inner city versus rural. It's a cultural difference. If you've been out into rural areas, you spend any time on estates, on farming, firearms are way much more of a way of life. And then also in the rural areas, you have a lot more shooting facilities. Yeah, there are ranges in London, there are ranges in the middle of Manchester, but usually they are in the middle of nowhere. It is very rare to have an abundance of ranges within the inner city. Certainly when we're talking about shotgun certificates, which is the most held certificate, I think it's something like 4-to-1 ratio of shotgun certificates to firearm certificates. When we're talking about shotguns, you don't tend to get playgrounds right in the middle of a city, mainly because the land's too expensive. You're going to have a lot of noise complaints, so they tend to be out in rural areas. So I think we're more seeing just the cultural differences between rural way of life and inner city way of life. Although, funnily enough, I started shooting while I was studying in London and was very much part of the urban shooting fraternity. But what I think is actually more hidden by this, and why I think this is so interesting, is obviously, again, within the UK, unlike other places within the world, or certainly moreover or more poignantly here within the UK, is being able to have a firearm or shotgun certificate is sort of by definition a measure of your character. Only the people of the highest character, only the people that can be trusted the most by the police are allowed to hold a firearm or shotgun certificate. So therefore, and there are exceptions to this rule, trust me. Um, I'm sure there's a couple of individuals that you all know I'm thinking of right now. But usually having a firearm or shotgun certificate is a sure stamp that you are of good character, you are a good person, you're not going to be going out there committing crime, making a nuisance, being antisocial, and just being a terror of the community. So it sort of goes to say that in areas that you tend to have a lot of certificate holders, firearm or shotgun certificates, there is going to be a higher proportion of good character people. Within that community, there are going to be a lot more people of such a almost impeccable character that, because they've been able to get those certificates. In the cities where lawful firearms ownership is not not as widespread, is not as common, you don't have necessarily the scales in favor of the people of good character. You tend to get a lot of people of bad character. And people of bad character tends to go hand in hand with committing crime and committing offences and having unlawful possession of firearms because they probably aren't suitable or qualified to be able to get a firearm lawfully. So this, again, from the normal conversation, this is why I thought it was an interesting one to approach, is this is not the typical everyone should be armed to protect themselves and deter criminals. No, I think this is more of a demographic of, I'm going to be very careful. I'm just going to say what I'm going to say, but I will preface it was with, I'm not saying that everybody that lives in the West Midlands, the metropolitan area, London, South Yorkshire, West Yorkshire, or whatever, that everybody that lives there is a bad person. You're all, you should all be shipped off, to Australia. Maybe that's going a little bit too far, uh, but I'm not saying everyone in those areas are bad people, but there is certainly a higher proportion of bad people within those areas. That is where the crime seems to gravitate, and therefore you're not going to get the same level of certificate ownership because you don't have the same distribution of good character people to bad character people. Whereas out in the rural areas, and I'm not saying if you live out in the middle of nowhere you're necessarily a good person, but there just seems to be, you know, more good people, or a higher proportion of good people, which means more people eligible to be able to get certificates. And because it's more of a way of life out there, um, more people are aware of firearms ownership, more people want to take part in that, whether for sport, whether for hunting, for pest control, for protecting crops and stuff like that. But the big message overall, and again, you can see the facts and figures, and we will go diving through a little bit more, but the real crux of it is in terms of the most recent statistics on firearms ownership, certificate uh, certificate holders, and firearm offences. There is absolutely no correlation between the numbers of firearms being owned, the number of certificates being held, and the amount of crime in that area. And actually, from what we can see here, it is completely the reverse. In areas where there is more firearms ownership, in areas that more people hold certificates, the lower the crime rate. So if you are on right move looking at your looking at your next property purchase, then you should be, well, again, this is just firearm offences, it's not just saying that all crime is low, but just particular firearm offences, but there is a list of potentially very nice places to live with very low firearm offences, and probably, statistically speaking, low crime as well. But I don't know. Let me know what you think of that. I do like having things like this banked in the back of my head, not to go out there proactively to have an argument with somebody, or just preparing for the day that I meet someone from the gun control network, but in just normal conversation. When you're talking to people, and what do you do? What's your hobby? Oh, I'm a shooter. And they have that adverse reaction. It's things like this that you can pull up, you can show them, you can talk about, and it's hard facts. And that tends to put people's, let's say, creativity and imagination a little bit more to rest. But there is some more interesting statistics within there. There's a really interesting page. I will just chuck it in the chat for you guys to have a look at, to bookmark it, to mull over at your own pace. They do also have things like Warwickshire. You want to go you want to go gun shopping? Warwickshire is the best place to go. Has the greatest number of firearms dealer in the UK, with 18.1 for every 100,000 people. Actually, that's, wait, 18. That can't be right. Am I missing? So there's two. So in the West Midlands, 211 offensive per 100,000 people, but in Warwickshire, there's only 18. So literally, you are 10 times more likely. You are 10. 10 times more likely to be a victim of gun crime in the West Midlands than you are to bump into a gun shop, an RFD within Warwickshire. There's an interesting there's interesting nugget number 2 for you, ladies and gentlemen, this evening. um, yeah, that's actually in a way pretty scary. That firearm offences affect more people than there are firearms dealers in an entire county. But they also have, in terms of so the list for most dealers. Again, I thought I don't necessarily know what this means, but it's just interesting to see. So Warwickshire obviously actually has quite almost double the second. Like, Warwickshire likes selling guns, but then again, it's, more central to the country. You're going to have more customer base. That sort of makes a little bit more sense. Definitely very southern orientated. Can definitely see that. But any of those counties, you want to be buying guns and visiting gun shops, those are the places to live. David Powys has more guns than any area of the UK. The Welsh obviously very much like their guns, with more than 6,500 shotguns per 100,000 people. So top 10 police force areas with the most shotguns. Again, seems very central. Remembering that diagonal line of crime. I don't know if you can actually see my mouse on that, but from the previous photo, again, there's no correlation to the locations that, these areas that have high gun ownership rates or a high number of firearms proportionately versus the amount of crime. But yeah, Wiltshire does seem to pop up quite a bit. I'm in Hampshire. Hampshire comes on this list once, I think it is. Applications for firearms in Durham. Oh, this is very interesting. Applications for firearms in Durham have been refused more than any other police force area, with over 17% of applications being rejected. That's insane. I think the national average is in like the low percentages. I think it's like the overall national percentage of applications that are rejected is, off the top of my head, I might be completely wrong with this, but I think it's like 2 or 3%. In my mind, there is something going on in Durham because that is way above the let me go firearm certificate statistics. Right. Here we go. Well, that is this purely firearm certificates, or is it shotgun certificates? Certificate holders. So we are now on .gov UK. There's going to be new certificates, renewals, revocations, firearm certificates. So new applications, of which 3% were refused. So yeah, 3%. I was pretty much bang on the money. That's very rare. So for a firearm certificate, it's about 2%. So this is for the total of the UK. 2% of certificates were refused, and 3% of shotgun certificates. So you're looking between the two as an average, about 2.5% chance of having a certificate revoked. What the hell is Durham doing? Like, I'm sorry, that like genuinely needs to be looked at. That genuinely needs to be investigated. You are 5 times, like sort of 5 to 7 times. Yeah, 5 to 7 times over sort of the national average. That's that would ring. If I was like the chief police of the UK, or what, if I was the Home Office, that would be a scary thought. That's just not right. That is they are someone's playing silly buggers there. The top 10 police force areas with the most refused firearm license applications. Durham being significant, Cleveland again significantly over the national average, Warwickshire again pretty high, Manchester, South Wales, Merseyside. So actually, South Yorkshire was one of the high rates of crime. So was Greater Manchester. So what was it? Cleveland was. That's actually pretty funny. It's literally like all the criminals are trying to apply for Northamptonshire, Hampshire. They like literally. It's like all the areas of high crime have the highest refusals. It's quite literally like the criminals are chancing their arm to get a certificate. Maybe we can cut Durham some slack, although they're not on the top 10. So Durham's playing silly buggers. But Cleveland, which was number 9, number 9 on the list of the most firearm offences across the country. That is literally just criminals just chancing their arm trying to get guns. So maybe we can cut Cleveland some slack there. But yeah, Durham, yeah, someone look into him, please. So police force areas with most refused license with Durham. If people in Durham submitted for shotguns. What? That can't. So they're saying that the entirety of Durham, there are only 200 applications. That doesn't seem right. The stats are from the Office for National Statistics, although saying that the total, what was the total number for the country? So there were 6,000 new applications for. Oh, okay, so nationally there are only 15,000 certificates, new applications for certificates. So that does seem about right. More shotgun and firearms licenses have been revoked in Devon and Cornwall than any other area, with 110 revocations. How about that? I wonder why that is. Why? Why would Devon and Cornwall be taking away people's certificates left, right, and centre? I can't think of any logical reason why they would be so heavy-handed to take away certificates that either they have given to the wrong people, or are maybe now being seen to be doing something, and the certificate holders of Devon and Cornwall are paying the price for that. So Devon and Cornwall, again, taking the lead there by a good 10%. I like how obviously they've used like an autofill bar there that's meant to go to like 100%, and computers just computed past that. So Devon and Cornwall, Kent is quite a high. Metropolitan Police, South Yorkshire, North Wales, West Yorkshire, David Powell's, Hampshire. Interesting. Thames Valley, Lincolnshire. Well, actually, Hampshire and Thames Valley, they are a linked force. They're not centralized yet, I don't think, but there is some sharing of resources. And again, I think this is very, very telling indeed, that you just have these areas where it absolutely spikes. Now, in all seriousness, we know why Devon and Cornwall are revoking certificates left, right, and centre. Like, we know their track record is not good of actually checking people of whether they are fit and proper and of good character and not a danger to themselves or the public to be able to have a firearm or shotgun certificate more aptly. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that all of those revocations are just and true, but they've demonstrated their ability to give certificates to the wrong people, and I really wouldn't pass them to have given certificates to other people that they really shouldn't have. But I'm also very confident that the majority, of the, let's say, access or the excess or above average number of revocations for Devon and Cornwall is down to their now heavy-handed approach, turning up at people's houses at 3 o'clock in the morning to ask them to voluntarily surrender their shotguns. It's the whole sort of modus operandi now of Devon and Cornwall is scary. It is really scary what what they were doing, what they were up to, and this is the bare bones facts and figures to show exactly how they are still not handling themselves properly. Like, I'm sorry, like, you shouldn't be, 10. How many counties are there? Like 42. You know, they're double the number of revocations. Okay, it depends on certificate, the proportion of certificates and people and all of that. But they're double the 10th spot, right? They're 10% more than the second. They are obviously, statistically speaking, they are revoking too many statistics. Like, if all of these were sort of within 10% of each other, you could put that down to, just you could write that off. But these the top four, are significantly more than the rest. Look at all these. So 50 to 69 giggly. So you've got, what's that? That's a 18% spread, right? An 18% spread between the 5th position and the 10th position. But between the 5th and the 1st, you have 41. That's again, like, I'm not going to sit here and profess to be a statistical whiz. I did get an A at GCSE statistics, so there we go. I've got to flex that when I can. It's very, very rare that I can. But to me, that just says that there could be a myriad of other reasons. Don't get me wrong, but why is no one getting upset about that? Why are these forces so much more? Why are they revoking so many more certificates than anywhere else? To me, that just seems to imply that there is a heavy-handed approach when it comes to revocations in those areas. And it is very interesting, personally, that Hampshire and Thames Valley seem to be within that list as well. But moving on. People in Kent have spent more than £310,000 on their firearm and shotgun certificates, more than any other area of the UK. This I think is quite a funny one, because it's sort of a bit meaningless, because we all pay the same amount, and obviously where there are more certificate holders, there's going to be more money coming in because more people are paying. But obviously the amount of renewals that people are doing obviously has a play in this. So maybe people in Kent can't make their mind up what section 1 firearms they want on their certificate, and they keep on having to do variations. But the biggest spenders, the top 10 areas with the most spent on renewing and applying for their firearm and shotguns certificates. I mean, this is on an annual. I'm just trying to, it's not an insignificant amount of money. Pretty fair spread across the board. Hampshire coming in there again. So with expenditure between April, has paid more than 200,000 for shotgun applications and renewals, almost 100,000 for firearm applications and renewals. However, neither amount is the highest in the UK, with shotgun and firearm applications and renewals ranking 2nd and 4th highest in the UK. Some good old crime statistics. Again, very, very useful to sort of bank this information to be able to have an educated conversation with somebody. BB guns, soft air weapons, were reported as the principal weapon almost 13,000 times in the last 10 years, more than any other weapon. So these are the most common principal weapons used in criminal offense. I like how they say principal weapons. Like, there was a bank robber that their principal weapon of choice was a BB gun, but they did have a sawn off, shoved down the leg just in case, like, or they had I don't know, an air rifle or a stun gun. But yeah, so I have to say, long-barreled shotguns, that surprised me, and it does surprise me that there aren't handguns. Though, so bearing in mind, in terms of, See, the statistics that I have seen previously, time and time again, the number one firearm used, or the largest proportion of firearm offences are attributed to handguns, which sort of, again, all of this is from ONS, but I've seen plenty of other from the ONS as well, bona fide statistics and stats on this, where handguns are the you know, firearm of choice for criminals. But according to this, BB guns, soft air weapons are number one. Long barreled shotguns, again, that did surprise me. Sawn off. I mean, maybe it's long barreled shotguns that haven't yet become a sawn off. But that in itself, that comparison, that's interesting to know and interesting to be able to relay, because sawn off shotguns, they're effectively illegal here. They're section 5. They're very hard to be able to own legally here, and there are very few reasons you would be able to own one legally here. But actually, it's not the amount of offensives, according to this, involving a sawn off is not that far off from the lawfully, or the not necessarily lawfully owned at the time of the offense being committed. But long barreled shotguns or shotguns are lawful to be able to own here under section 2, under a firearm certificate. So this sort of goes to show that having guns that are lawfully owned doesn't really stop people from having guns that are illegally owned. The amount of sawn offs is similar, or just under about 2/3, or maybe just under to 3/4 under the amount of offensives used with long barreled shotguns. Stun guns, number 4, imitation handguns, pepper spray. I mean, that's like, again, I know pepper sprays, CS gas, whatever, it's unlawful. You shouldn't be using it, but I like the villainry here. Like, he held up a bank with some pepper spray. Like, give me the money or your eyes are going to get it. And CS gas, again, next to that. Rifles, disguised firearms. Isn't that a looty? And blank fire, that comes as no surprise, although the amount of times it's been used comes as a surprise, actually, because blank firers are, again, very, very popular for crime. So it, again, doesn't matter that there's real firearms that you can be owned here. People will still get hold of what they need to be able to do what they want. And then that is about it. But yeah, very interesting article overall. All this information, you can go onto .gov, onto the Office for National Statistics, and you can find it out all yourself. But I like it. I like pictures. So when they put it in nice formats like this, it makes it a lot easier for me to understand and to present to you guys. So yeah, let me know what you think. I will, and saying about let me know what you think. Let's have a quick look through your questions and comments. Again, just a reminder, you can get involved. You agree, disagree, let me know. You got any questions at all, then please fill that chat box. And again, make sure you're liking and subscribing. We've got over double the amount of people than we have likes. If you're watching and not liking, why are you watching? I mean, it's Friday night. Surely you've got something better to be doing than watching something that you don't like. So you must be really liking it to watch it on a Friday night. So hit that like button. And again, make sure you are subscribed. And I had a prop ready. And everything with my, and I completely forgot. Got into the swing of things. Again, on the caveat of this is not a discussion about concealed carry or arming yourself, self-defense and all that. I was going to say, the title is a slight nod to. I say a slight nod. It's the title, but it's not this interesting read. It takes a lot for me to say that, because I really don't like reading. I much prefer numbers. But again, it's useful to retain sort of bits of nuggets of information. So it's a good read. Quite a famous book that I'm sure most of you have either seen, heard of, or actually have owned and read yourselves already. What are you guys saying? A Friday stream, does that mean we can have knives? We can have knives. Happy knows. And yes, Happy, this has a lot of legs. We are in the process of sorting out a t-shirt maker. I keep forgetting to do the British Avian spaghetti community. What was it? I've forgotten already. I do have all the entries. Thank you for everyone that sent your entries in. I will be doing a poll at some point. I think I've narrowed it down. I think I'm going to narrow it down to 6, and then I'm going to be. Keep forgetting to talk about this on stream because I want to let you guys know I am going to go for a poll. I did say I was just going to pick one because I can, but I'm just going to go for a poll. I think I'm going to do a poll on YouTube, obviously, and also a poll on Facebook. And the winner between those two polls, we will be getting t-shirts made, and we are in the process of getting all the gear that you need to be able to make custom t-shirts at Maglo, mainly because there are, again, just how many times have you guys heard me say that needs to be a t-shirt? So the BASC, yeah, British Avian Spaghetti Community, I can't remember what it was, committee, that was it. Thank you AD. Yes, yeah, it's going to that will become a t-shirt, and so will we can have knives. 100%. That is going to be on a t-shirt, and it's probably going to be the best selling t-shirt ever. Heppy's going to buy 3 of them at least. Do you hear it? What WTF? Don't want to lose that monetization. WTF? It's Friday. Yes, it is. Welcome. As I explained, wasn't able to do it last night and didn't want to call it off because I know I'd be twiddling my thumbs tonight anyway, despite the fact that the house is in a state of disrepute at the moment, having a lot of work done in preparation. Mr. Swan, what do you think about the Schmeiser SP9? Well, funny you should ask that, because it was only last weekend that I released a video on it, and I won't necessarily call it a review. It was sort of a tabletop deep dive into. I really like the Schmeiser. I think for the money, this is all what I say in the video, but I'll try and give you like the 30-second take of it. I think for the money, it's a great gun. I think it's got a lot of features above what you would normally get on a sort of mil-spec AR for the money. Somebody did comment, and it's something that I maybe should have commented more in the video, which is, yes, why it's got all of these controls. I think I mentioned it about the grip, that, you know, the grip wasn't super high quality. You know, and personally, I'd probably be going out there and getting a better grip in my opinion. But it was nicer than what normally comes on, you know, bog standard AR. And, you know, the controls were nicer than what comes on a bog standard AR out of the box. Were they the highest quality in the world? No. But the fact that, you know, it was an ambi 45-degree safety, you've got the ambidextrous functionality all over the gun, the enlarged charging handle, even though you don't really need one on a straight ball. The fact that it comes with a muzzle brake on it as standard, you know, little things like that. You know, Magpul-esque stock, the flip up sights, all of that stuff, they don't necessarily have to put in there. They can go for the generic, cheaper, nasty, and take the approach that people are going to add their own things on there. But the fact that they've thought about it, the fact that they've offered something that is above average, above bog standard, I think is really, really good. And around the £2,000 mark, I don't think it's a huge amount of money for the sort of gun that it is. But more important about the Schmeiser SP9 is that it works, and it works very well. There have been a number, I'm not going to start naming names because there's a lot of them that I get on really, really well with, and they build phenomenal guns. But there are a number of very, very competent, established companies within the UK, gun builders within the UK, that have tried making straight pull 9mm, and I don't think any of them have truly pulled it off. There are some that have sort of managed to get them to work, and the customers are happy enough because they're not going into a high level competition with it. It's effectively a plinking gun for them to shoot at some stills, so if they got to get the knife out a couple of times to extract a case, or they got to drop the mag every now and then to clear a malfunction, then it's no skin off their nose, really. But the 9mm cartridge, as I go into the video, is a particularly difficult case to use within a straight pull mechanisms, and it's all to do. Well, yeah, the video explains it a lot more better with graphics and diagrams and stuff like that, which I definitely didn't steal off another video off YouTube. Definitely not. But yeah, it's just a very difficult. 9mm is very difficult to make work with straight pull, and Schmeiser had a quite simple but ingenious way of getting around it, and mitigates and reduces those issues. Don't get me wrong, you've still got to give it a good old pull to be able to get the clear extraction and ejection from it. If you're limp-wristed with it, it will just fall on top of the magazine. But yeah, in terms of the gun on it standalone, I think I said in the video, I don't think you can go wrong with it. I think it's good for the money. It's a decent gun. It works. Like, if you want a 9mm straight pull, there isn't really much else out there. But it's not a case of beggars can't be choosers, even though beggars can't be choosers because there isn't many out there. It's not a bad default option. It's actually a pretty good. That's the only one you can really get, and that actually is a pretty good gun. Whether you need one, very dangerous footings here. To me, the 9mm straight pull sort of falls into the category of like the 22 WMR AR-15s. Really cool, really great. I'd have one, but I probably wouldn't use it that much. Like, I don't know what I would go out there routinely doing to use a 22 WMR or a 9mm straight pull. Now, if we developed our IPSC rifle here a little bit more, and we had some straight pull, there's nothing saying that we can't have a straight pull full bore IPSC level 3 competition here. Manual action is a recognized division in IPSC rifle. The challenge comes with PCC, and I don't think there's anything that excludes a manual action. So you could technically have a level 3. I'm pretty sure you could have a level 10. I'd have to refer to my IPSC rule guru, Connors, to double check that. But that's where I see a lot more use and a lot more buzz around the SP9 from Schmeiser, is actually bringing IPSC PCC competition here. That could be very, very interesting. I panicked. I'd put my bin out on the wrong day. Fair dues. Lewis, one word when people say about more guns equals more crime. Canada. Look at the percentage in Canada when you can get handguns, and look at the gun crime compared to the US. Switzerland is usually the go-to, right? Where you have conscription there, you have national service there, where a lot of households have a firearm in them, and next to no crime. I think it was, is it Andorra? And like, I'm pretty sure. Huh. Yeah, today, this is Reddit, so not exactly a reliable source, but today I learned Andorra has no army. Instead, all Andorrans should, by law, it is Andorra that I was thinking of, keep a rifle. The law also states that the police will offer a firearm in case of need. And then I remember, now I'm going to go on to another really reliable source and go Wikipedia. I'm pretty sure it's Andorra, but don't quote me on this. This isn't firm statistics. But I remember going down. I was doing this what we're doing this evening, of going through the countries with the highest firearms ownership and then the countries with the highest murder rate. And what struck me initially was, I think it was Andorra, the statistics were zero. Like there was literally no reported for the period of the data that I was looking at. Andorra didn't have a single murder reported for that period, but it was up there with the highest firearms ownership rate, because you lawfully have to have a rifle there. And do I need to say more? Um, don't worry. With World War III around the corner, they'll be giving us all guns soon. I will laugh. Like seriously, I will laugh. I am actually I'm actually pretty patriotic and proud to be British. I do question my sanity sometimes, but and I would have no problem, absolutely no problem going and fighting for our country. And judge me as you may, but I did was fully intending at one point to go into the Air Force. Granted, it was to train as a pilot, come out of the Air Force, and then be a commercial airline pilot. And around the time that I was looking to go into the Air Force, they upped the minimum service for pilots from 12 years to 18 years, which I was like, no, I like engineering more. But I have no problem going and serving my country. If in that eventuality that World War III does break out and we're all conscripted and we need to sent out and we're given our M fields and told to go back to back over there. I am sort of in my head in that situation to be tempted to go, no, no, sorry, seriously. For 8 years, you've been telling me I can't have certificates to own the guns at home, and now you're literally giving me a gun and telling me to go and defend this country. Sorry, I'm too much of a danger at home to have firearms, but you're more than happy for me to go out there and defend this country. I genuinely don't know which tack I would end up playing, or maybe I'd have to be. I will go and defend this country. I will go and defend this country very, very well, but there better be a certificate through my door by the time that I get home. I'm legit surprised Bristol isn't on the list. I think there's a number of reasons Bristol isn't on that list. The English shooting bourbon review for this evening. I am on Russell's Reserve 10 year. One of my favorites so far. It's Friday. I thought I'd treat myself. And no, I wasn't having bourbon last night. Don't you worry. It's still my weekly live stream bourbon. Mr. Swan, here in Greenland. Well, thanks for joining from Greenland. Firearms don't need to be registered, only semi-autos, and there were almost no gun crimes last time. One happened was gun crimes. Last time one happened was 7 years ago. I live in the US now. Where I live, guns are ubiquitous. Most did your space bar stop working there? Most households have at least one gun. Most guys carry it, and a lot of women carry guns or have one in their car. We have almost no violent crime. And actually, one of the areas everyone defaults to, like Texas, and I've said this a million times, but I was so surprised about Utah. I went out there for work and also for shooting. Not at the same time. I went out with American Shooting Trips, and also was out there for work and talking to people. So I was in Salt Lake for work, and we were down in St. George for shooting at SUPs, and talking to local people. And I ended up finding out that actually in Tulare County, which is it's either what Salt Lake City is in, or it's a county just next to Salt Lake City, had the most guns per person than anywhere else in the US. So everyone thinks Texas is the gun capital. No, it's just outside Salt Lake City in Utah. And I've said before, there was this interaction we had with it was either a sort of a cafe owner, diner owner, or a shop owner. And they heard the accent, started talking to us. How are you finding Utah? And it was like we said to him, it's sort of crazy. Like, I'd been to the States a number of times prior to that, and, Americans do tend to be very, very nice, very chatty, very friendly, hospitable, very welcoming. Customer service is usually sort of second to none compared to the UK. I'm sure there's a lot of Americans watching going, really? But yeah, compared to what we have in the UK, you're up there. But Utah was just so much like nicer in a way. The people would just seem to be so much nicer and so more friendly and engaging and couldn't do more for you and polite. And I commented on it. I said, I think this at the time, this is like the politest place that I've been in the US. And she's sort of, yeah, well, you would be polite when you know everybody's got a gun. It's like, yeah, that's a good point. Well made. Yeah, fair enough. And there's all of us Brits going, we are literally the only people unarmed here. That's fantastic. Um, s- yeah, I've been to plenty of places in the US where it's yeah, ubiquitous. Gun crime is actually gang crime, which goes to my hypothesis of it, obviously being, it's not a hypothesis, the statistics prove it. So it's all to do with within a city. Lol, that was supposed to say most households have at least one gun. Good, you found the space bar. Ruggers, I can't remember. Can we have knives? We can have knives. Happy, can we have knives? Please, please remind us all. Wiltshire, Bath. Oh yeah, of course. You have Bath, Bristol, and Swindon nearby. How many offences per year in the UK are committed by certificate holders? Do you know what, Danksy? I I've never seen that certificate that stat out there actually. Um, I wonder if you can put a freedom of information request for that in. But I mean, AD, you're saying single digits, always less than 10% per year. If you know where those statistics are, I would be very happy, very, very happy to find them. That would be very, very useful. What about NI where you are allowed to carry for defense? Well, unfortunately, I am in England and it's even frowned upon to talk about concealed carry and defending yourself and using firearms for said purposes. So, you know, I'm British. What do I know about carrying a gun for self-defense? Paul Gilly sent GP form to fill out for SGC. It will be 2 weeks. It will be 2 weeks ago. Still not got it back. How long does it usually take? Mine did it in like a day. I think mine actually might have done it while I waited. Certainly, if you're paying, some GPs do it for free. If they are doing it for free, I wouldn't piss them off. But if you are paying for it, even if it's like 20 quid, I'd be phoning them up and going, pull your finger out. Like, I'm paying you here. Happy, how long's a piece of string? I don't know, but can we have knives? That's what I want to know more. Uh, I'm curious as to how many of those firearms offences are involving real guns, but by that I mean, is it a kid who's robbed the local shop with an airsoft replica? Well, um, looking at it in terms of the primary weapon that was used, or principal weapon that was used, it may very much be airsoft. That's why actually a lot of the firearm offence statistics do separate air guns, certainly for England and Wales, air guns, airsoft, BB guns, and stuff like that, replica firearms. AD, please send me the spreadsheet. I would be interested to pick through that. Maybe not live, depending on how it's set out. But yeah, if you know the email, it's EnglishShooting@gmail.com. If you want to ping that over to that, I will definitely have a look. And it's just reminded me you've been only ES fans for 19 months. So thank you very much for your continued support. I've just reminded you now that you've been continuously supporting, and now you'll drop off. we will be doing more. Connors is we've chatted about it. Connors is very much up for doing a only ES fans stream or meetup or whatever. So we will do that. Radio 4 did a program on how most gun crime is converted blank fire guns. The NCA have been talking about that for quite a bit as well. I have to laugh at the map on the right. 7 and 8 are in the wrong locations. Oh, you obviously know better geography better than me. I saw a Royal Armouries video on YouTube about Mac 10s in the UK, some of which converted from blank firing. Interesting video. You mean like, like a P.A. Luti's book is an interesting read? Just for clarity, that is a joke. Actually, the National Crime Agency are saying that gun crime is down in the country as a whole. There we go. Banning guns works. It's only taken 30 years from the handgun ban, but it works. It works in the end. Dang, there are a lot of lawful firearms owners in the UK. Yes, there is. I think it's around 600 to 700, or about 550,000 to about 600,000 certificate holders. It's something in that region. And I think at the last statistic that I saw, there was something like 2.5 million lawfully owned firearms in the UK, out of a population of like 60, 70 million, compared to the 300 million firearms and the like 300 million people in the US. We're still rookie numbers. Danksy, certificate holders should 100% be able to add handguns to their license, even if there was additional training or certification steps required. At least there is a path forward. I completely agree. Banning particular types of guns does not work. It's never worked. There's no proof to show that it works. If you are fit and proper and safe and be deemed of good character to be able to have your side-by-side shotgun, there is literally no reason or justification why you can't have a handgun. There's technically no reason why you can't be entrusted with a full auto. Like, you're still going to keep the guns pointed in a safe direction and use them responsibly and appropriately. How fast a gun shoots bullets, the kind of bullets it shoots, and how big, small, round, square the gun is, it's all the person behind it. None of those maps have Hampshire as a county on them. No, it's not done by, I don't think the areas are done by county as such. It's more other regions. It's a bit, because there's not 42. Yeah, because no, it's done like southeast, southwest. It's not done. It's not done county. It's done by region. The penultimate ninja. When I moved to Wisconsin, I checked the violent crime statistic versus Birmingham, which is where I'm originally from. Birmingham's violent crime rate is 90 times what it is where I live. Can we get married? Need to get out to the US. Durham will still be nervous after that shooting spree the other year. Reminds me of California and New York having insane amounts of gun crime, but having stricter gun control. It's almost like restricting the guns doesn't work, isn't it? It's we all know this. So just flicking through. We will come back to I know this is about the UK, but a lot of people don't know where the US violence is originated. I got chores that I'm putting off. Like 100%, I can imagine sat here watching this is better than doing chores. Me sat here doing this is certainly a lot better than chores for me. Anyway, I mislaid my PPK yesterday, and it turned out my cat was sitting on it. So that book could actually be very helpful. David, is there a magazine capacity limit in the UK, like in Canada, 5 rounds for rifles and 10 rounds for handguns? No. This is one of the odd, strange things about the UK. Like the go-to sort of gun control of big magazines are bad. Okay, no, that we don't have it. There is absolutely no magazine restrictions here within the UK. There's technically one, and that's to do with shotguns. I know a lot of you, I'm teaching you to suck eggs here, but for anybody joining us, hi. Or anyone new joining us, hi. In the UK, we effectively have two certificates for 99% of people, 99.9% of people that are going to own a firearm in some capacity. You're either going to be looking at a Section 2 shotgun certificate or a Section 1 firearm certificate. Shotguns sounds like, you know, all shotguns go under a shotgun certificate. No. Annoyingly, we have shotguns that are classed as Section 1 firearms. Still with me? So, and it's all to do with detachable magazines and the capacity of the magazine. So under a Section 2 shotgun certificate, you can have a semi-auto, a pump action, a lever action. I think you can have a lever action in a Section 2, side by side, over and under, single shot, whatever. You can have all the mechanisms, apart from, I think, revolving shotguns are prohibited. Anyway, but if you have a pump action or a semi-auto, and for any of the guns, the magazine cannot be detachable. But if you have a semi-auto or a pump action, the tube has to be restricted to a 2-capacity magazine tube, and this leads to the expression here in the UK of a 2+1 shotgun. So 2 in the magazine, 1 in the chamber. They can be owned under Section 2 and be held under a shotgun certificate. With a firearm certificate, there is no, if you have a Section 1 shotgun under a firearm certificate, that means it's got a detachable mag, it's under a certain length, or it's got a unrestricted capacity, and it really is an unrestricted capacity. So, you know, at Magload, I might as well use the opportunity for a small plug, but it's not a forced plug. Never force a plug. So for those that have been living under a rock for the last few years, and maybe this comes as a shock to some people, because there's still people that seem to be shocked by it, but I am a part owner of a Magload alongside Connors, who founded Magload, and we make go faster bits for all sorts of guns, and one of the bits that we make is a magazine tube for a for shotguns. It's all competition based, so every single one is made to order, which is why you can, you know, customize it to whatever length specification that you want. But you'll look on here so let's pick an M2. And yeah, I'd go for the external cap, and you can see that we go up to a +10 as a standard length. We can also do a custom length. Now that's a +10 tube, and for anybody that is watching this and thinking of ordering a tube, this is in addition to your standard internal capacity. So within the handguard, there will be an internal magazine tube which your external magazine tube screws into. So we've got a nice list that unfortunately not all customers read, but we've got you know, so like for an M2, it's got 4 rounds internal capacity. So you're talking, you buy a +10 tube, which we will more than happily make you, and you put it on a Benelli M2 under a Section 1 firearm certificate, and you will have a 14-round capacity shotgun. I can't remember what lengths do we get the carbon in it? I'm pretty sure they're I think they're 1.5 meters. I'm just gonna, based on being 1.5 meter length, divided by, so I think theoretically it will be 15, because I've got to take off for the end cap, and so I think theoretically, based on a 1.5 meter blank tube that we have made to our specs, we could actually theoretically make a 24.5 capacity magazine tube. This sort of needs to be done. Why haven't we done this? We've just had April Fools. So on a Benelli M2, you would be talking a near 30 round capacity shotgun. Trying to get a spring long enough to make that work reliably might be your biggest issue, but legally it wouldn't be an issue. You could have, Jesus, like how would you I have to do that somewhere. I have to open I have to we're gonna have to find the longest tube we can make where the gun still runs, or we can get a magazine spring long enough. But yes, legally you could have a 30 round Benelli M2 under a section 1. The easier thing to do if you want maximum capacity is to go and buy a box fed, go and buy a Vepr, Typhoon. Don't get a UTAS because you won't get more than one shot off. Typhoon probably be good for the first 25 shots, or an Armsan, and most of them come with drum mags. So you'll have, I think the standard drum mag capacity for the box fed shotguns are 25 round, perfectly legal. So under section 1, you can have a box fed, put a 25 round drum mag on it, and you're good to go. But sort of funnily, for competition, one of the main uses for box fed semi-auto section 1 shotguns is for practical shooting. And within IPSC, for open division, which box feds shoot under, you've got a restricted capacity of, well, it's not restricted capacity, but you're not allowed to start a stage with more than 10 rounds in your magazine. So having a 25 round drum mag might look pretty cool, but gives you no competitive advantage at all. But yeah, you know, no capacity. There's a very, very, very long answer to no, we don't have magazine limits. Interestingly, though, in Northern Ireland, magazines are licensed. This is something I should probably cover because it's a good sort of public service announcement, because a lot of people have been caught off guard by this. So whilst Northern Ireland, it is within the UK, because it's got its own parliament, it's got its own firearms law. They've sort of got the same system. It's very similar, just it's got that slight Northern Irish flavour to it. And of course, they can have handguns over there. They can also have PCCs, but their magazines are classed as component parts. So I don't think you have to have a slot for them. I think if Blackstone is here, he will come to the rescue and absolutely lay out what it is. But you definitely need the gun that magazine would go in on your firearms certificate to be in lawful possession of it. And of course, a lot of us go over to Northern Ireland to train and shoot handguns, or train with and shoot handguns, and people like to take, we've got Glock mags at Maglo for development purposes. We've got, I think we've got 2011 mags there. Got any other? I think Walther 9mm PPQ mags. We've got a whole host of full bore handgun magazines. So us going out to NITSA, you would think, oh, yeah, let's bring all the magazines that we've got and fly out there. No, people have been stopped and very strongly warned. You tend to get one chance with it. I'm really sorry, apologize profusely. I didn't know. Like, that's the insanity. Like, over in Northern Ireland, you can own the pistol, and over on mainland in England, Scotland, and Wales, you can have as many magazines as you want without having a firearms certificate. But you can't take those magazines over to Northern Ireland, which is technically the same country. Don't want to start anything. Happy. It takes an age to get through a 30 round PMag when manually cycling. You just need to up your cycling rate. So you can run IPSC with a Martini Henry. Again, that's probably more of a Connor's question there. But we went out to Denmark to film a level 3 rifle match that they had there, and there were people with blazers. There were people with straight pull blazers, hunting rifles, entering these IPSC competitions. Pump action rifles are the sort of go-to manual action, but I saw people with bolt actions, with straight pulls, and this was the real kicker. Is the previous rifle world shoot out in Sweden, IPSC specifically changed the rules to allow people to compete with lever release guns. For those that don't know, for those that you do, I'm probably sending you asleep, but for those that don't know, we had a very ingenious mechanism, because we're not allowed semi-auto full bores, basically, or we're not allowed self-loading full bore rifles. And Southern Gun Company, rifle builders here, had the ingenious thought of having a lever release. So you would fire off the shot, the bolt would come back, the bolt would lock. You would then have to flick a lever, which would release the bolt, would then chamber another round. You could fire and you repeat the cycle. Really sort of simple idea in principle, but just super smarts to come up with it and actually put it into practice. And there was a lot of people with these lever releases, and they got it changed, IPSC rules, to allow these lever releases to be able to be used within IPSC competition, I think under the manual division. And then literally like a couple of months before the Rifle World shoot, the Offensive Weapons Bill fully came into effect and the guns were banned. So thank you, Home Office. So literally one of the things that they managed to achieve was stopping people from representing Great Britain finally at a reasonably level playing field on an international circuit, on an international stage. I lost my guns in a boating accident. Rifle, please. What would be the British equivalent? Lost my guns in a boating accident. We can have knives. There we go. That's the equivalent. Hello, mate. Just about to get my shotgun license sent through. Good 12 bores to look at for mostly clays, but also a decent amount of game and pest control. To be honest, there's only it depends on your budget, how long's a piece of string, all of that sort of stuff. Really, it's going to be Browning or it's going to be Beretta. Yeah, you can go Maruku, Atta, more on the budget end, but Benelli. Like, I do seriously have concerns for people that buy Benelli over and unders. They are gorgeous looking guns, right? They look sexy. They look like an Italian gun should look. And for that reason, I would always be tempted. But I still don't know what goes through the mindset of looking at all those and go, oh yeah, Benelli, that really well-known over and under manufacturer. Beretta, on the other hand, basically Beretta Silver Pigeon or a Browning 525. Pretty much, it's the best analogy that I've ever had said to me about it is that Browning and Beretta are like BMW and Audi, right? We're not going to start a BMW and Audi discussion here, but you know, solid cars. You know, they're they're not top end, but they're certainly not the bottom end. They're reasonably respected in terms of the position in their market. They're certainly a bit nicer than say like a Nissan Micra, but it's really personal flavor. Like, you're going to get people that absolutely love BMWs, but will not even sit in an Audi, and vice versa. And you get that with shotguns. So the best thing that you can do is actually go out there and get hands on and shoot those guns and find what works best for you. I personally find Brownings too chunky, too heavy. They feel just a bit too chunky for me. Berettas tend to be slimmer, sort of more petite, which is really strange because the Beretta 1301 practical gun, like IPSC gun, is a much chunkier, heavier gun versus the Benelli M2. And to me, a Benelli M2 feels like the Beretta Silver Pigeon version of a semi-auto. But anyway, like, if you're literally asking me to say what gun you should go out and buy tomorrow, you cannot go wrong with a Beretta Silver Pigeon, and I would 100% recommend going and getting one secondhand. The newer ones are not as nice. They're not made to the same quality as they used to be. I think I managed to sort of get lucky, and when I ended up buying mine, which was back, God, that was 12 years ago. It, for me, that's like, that was before they started cutting corners. I say cutting corners, they are still really high quality guns, but the wood on mine compared to modern ones, the wood is so much nicer. um the detail on the gun just seems to be much higher, and I think I ended up, yeah, by purely by luck, I ended up getting peak Beretta. But yeah, Connor's picked up a secondhand one at the British Shooting Show a couple of years ago now. I think he paid, was it three? No, being about, I think about 500 quid. It shoots exactly the same as mine. And that's the thing about a Silver Pigeon. It really doesn't matter what age, as long as it's looked after, as long as the wood's in good condition, you can go and smash around the clays. You can take it out for pigeon shooting. You can take it out game shooting. I've said before, like, apart from my granddad's shotgun, the Silver Pigeon would be the last gun that I ever sell, because you can do so much with it. There's sentimental value for a few reasons with it, but it's also so versatile. You don't look out of place on a game day. You're not so worried about it when you're out there in the field shooting pigeons. And yeah, I would say probably go and get the sporter version, and that might help you a little better with clays. Texas got out Texas impossible. Can people have CCWs in Ireland? See, that I'm not, I'm fairly clued up with, say, Northern Ireland, but Ireland I'm less so. I saw that old video you did with the BBC recently. I forgot what Callum looks like without a beard. It is, for those of you, I haven't actually been on it. The comments, the comments are usually pretty interesting. I have to say. Let me just bring that up. What was it called? Brits with guns, which I find hilarious, because really they should make a follow-up. They should make a follow-up called Brits Without Guns. Let's go share this one instead. I can't actually remember. Oh, yeah, there we go. A lot younger, a lot slimmer, and a lot less beardy.
I need immediate reform.
Got your club ID on you? Yeah.
A very baby looking Johnny as well. It's interesting. We talked a while back about this, and he said it was this that sparked him to set up TSG Outdoors, because he saw the reaction that it got. They got an influx of people coming into the shop, and I think the guy that owns the shop and owns Botley Mills was like, "Oh, hang on a minute! If I let you guys, like, we've got all the guns, we get a camera in. If I let you guys make some videos, it's good for business." So he, that's what sparked it. So he does. So you're welcome, fans of TSG Outdoors. You're welcome. Johnny himself said, if this hadn't have happened, he probably wouldn't have, sort of started the channel. And I might have talked about this previously on the channel, but it was certainly a long time ago. This almost didn't happen for a variety of reasons, but the main one was that initially, so Ben Zand, the journalist, the guy making the film, he got in contact with me, and he was like, "I'm doing this thing. I want to get like a gun owner's perspective of it. Obviously, you're quite vocal about it. So can we have a chat? I was like, yeah, no problem. Let me see if I can find a gun shop that we can film in. And he's like, well, no, why don't we just do it at home? I'm like, well, why do you want to do it at home? And basically, there's a video that he made, like a little documentary thing about, I think it was preppers or American gun owners, like a few months before, and there was this picture of this guy on his bed with about 30 different rifles. Now, there's not anything wrong with that, but the image to somebody that doesn't own 30 guns or isn't in the shooting community or regularly shoots, just having 30 rifles laid out all over your bed, and having that image plastered across the internet isn't necessarily the best look. And that's exactly what he was trying to do to me. He was trying to get me to be sat on my sofa at home with all these guns strewn all over the place, or on my bed with all these guns strewn along the place. And obviously that's very out of context. Like, I don't sit there in an evening with all those guns laid about the sofa, Your Honor. So we, I was trying to find a gun shop, and you might be surprised, but phoning up gun shops going, hey, do you mind if a BBC film crew comes down to make a video in the shop? You'd be, I'm sure you'd be shocked of the reaction of most of them. There were some expletives, and a couple of them literally just hung up on me, and I ended up, and they, so it wasn't, they changed names, but anyway, I phoned the gun shop in Botley, and Johnny picked up, and we had never met. I'd been there a couple of times as a customer, but we didn't know each other, and I literally went like, "Hey," like, I've got this like journalist that's got a film crew, and this is the morning of this video. We've got this film crew that wants to make a documentary about gun owners in the UK. Can we come to your gun shop and do it there? And there was a slight pause. I'm like, here we go, it's going to cut off. And he's like, yeah, I don't see an issue with that. Come on down. 10 o'clock work for you? Who the fuck is this guy? And I knew I was chancing my arm, but he was absolutely okay with it. We turned up, we had a quiet conversation away from Benzan's to be like, look, he's going to try and screw us in some way, so let's be on our best behavior. But yeah, that was quite an experience overall, and I ended up getting probably the worst headache I've ever had, just out of sheer concentration, not to say something stupid. But yeah, it's a baby face Johnny. Oh, that might be a t-shirt as well. Anyway, yeah, that was a while ago. When was this video? 8 years ago. Jesus. Yeah, it must have been long ago. I still had certificates. Emotional damage. George Smith, could you have a 2+1 LBP on a section 2 if it wasn't rifled? God, now you're asking the questions. Technically not. It would have to still be birdshot or buckshot. So you would need you'd need like a, what do they call it? The rat shot stuff. But that is a very interesting idea. And also, you obviously couldn't have a detachable magazine, so that makes it a little bit trickier. Are those AK shotguns legal here? Yes. Yes, they are. But everyone loses their minds about handguns. No gun is more dangerous than the other. But I would argue, I would argue that there is a level of illogicality in worrying about somebody with a 15 round magazine in a Glock, or 17 round magazine in a Glock of 9mm, versus somebody that can have a 25 round drum mag of buckshot or slug. Like, what would what would you prefer? Like, if we're going to start talking about guns being more dangerous than others. No, it's not about danger, it's about capability. Moving on swiftly. What are the IPSC definitions for shotgun, pistols, rifles? Actually, they are very well defined. Unfortunately, the rule books are very, very big. It will take me a very long time to actually go and find the definitions. But it's things like within IPSC handgun, the production division, there is a production list. It doesn't just tell you what the gun has to conform to. It gives you the list of manufacturers and makes of guns that you're allowed to use in that division. For open division, the gun has to fit in a box, or is that standard? I think it's open and standard. There's literally a box that they will put guns into, and they've literally shaved off certain angles and shaved things down so it fits in this box. And I believe you're pretty much the main condition is that you can have anything on the gun as long as it fits in the box. There is technically also a modified shotgun box. So for modified shotguns, I've actually got our tube page up. It is a total length of 1320 millimeters, so 1320 millimeters. That is the total overall length that you're allowed your gun to be in modified division in IPSC shotgun. And at a high level match, they will have a box that you will have to put your modified shotgun in to show that it fits within. If it's BMW versus Audi, what would be the firearm equivalent of a Fiesta ST? A Derrier. Yeah, I'm just going Derrier. Or in terms of commonality, like a 1522, like a Fiesta ST on paper is pretty hard to beat. They handle well, they go pretty well, and as a bit of ruckus fun A to B car, it ticks all the boxes, does everything you'd want to do, and you can have a bit of fun with it, take it on a track or whatever. I did go down the Clio Sport route, but I was tempted by a Fiesta ST, and that's sort of the 1522. Like, it's sort of no frills. Like, you can take it into a competition. You can take a Fiesta on track. You can, it's good value for money. It ticks all the boxes. It does everything that you want it to do. But when you pull up alongside somebody at a range with a battle arms or a Lantac or an aero build or whatever, you will be like, yeah. I mean, mine can outshoot yours. It can with the right shooter behind it, but we'd all rather be, in the I don't know, Audi RS3 versus the Fiesta. Sorry. So too many of you dislike it when I start talking about cars or anything about shooting, so I'll try and limit it. Willie's Jeep is also acceptable. I hope that's in the right context. Callum, just come to the US so you can own guns again. This is the funny thing, though, in terms of a quirk of our law. I still own guns legally, sort of. So because I purchased firearms, though a lot of the guns that I did with certificates, all of the guns that I purchased were with certificates. But basically, because how do I absolutely cast iron legally word this without it sounding wrong? So in the armory at Maglo's, there is the 1522 that I bought. There is, when I had certificates, there's the Beretta Silver Pigeon that I bought when I had certificates. There's my granddad shotgun that was given to me while I had certificates. So I took lawful ownership of that while I had certificates. Do I have any others? I think everything else got sold on. So there was another shotgun that I used to lend out to friends again, bought when I had certificates. And I think that's it. So there's 4 guns there, right? But because I came into possession of them, purchased them, whatever, whilst I had certificates, they are still lawfully my property. Nobody can actually tell me what I do with those guns to an extent. So yes, they are under the possession of a RFD, a registered firearms dealer. They were in an armory under that RFD's control. I just happen to be a servant of that RFD. Stonks. So, you know, servants of that RFD can have access to anything in the armory lawfully. So how about that? Again, this just makes it ridiculous that they won't give me certificates. I've got the guns right there. I've got keys to the guns. I could drive there right now, completely legally, load up the car with all the guns. I don't know, and just go for a little drive just for the sake of it, completely lawfully. And if I get stopped by the police, I'm a servant of the RFD. I'm listed as a servant. They make a run. Why are you driving around at 2 o'clock with a load of guns in the back of your car? Just was in the mood. Yeah, that would probably be where that all falls down, because they'll be like, hang on a minute. But anyway, you know, that's all lawfully, but they won't give me certificates. Anyway, they are still lawfully my property. So nobody can sell them, dispose of them, transfer them without my approval, which is a really odd area of law. And it's down to the fact that our firearm certificates and shotgun certificates is nothing about ownership. It's about authority to possess. And that's actually how the law is constructed and is written. It's not about ownership. It's about lawful possession. Firearm certificates and shotgun certificates, yes, allow you to go and purchase firearms lawfully, but ultimately it is for you to be in lawful possession of them. So, you know, as somebody without certificates, yes, I don't have that. I don't have that aspect of law. I don't have the certificates to be my lawful authority to be in possession. But then you also have exemptions in law. You have the Home Office approved club exemption, which, as a member of a Home Office approved club, I'm allowed to take possession of any rifle for the purposes of target shooting. There's the film and TV exemption, which, again, under supervision of an RFD or servant of, you're allowed to, without a certificate, you're allowed to take possession of a firearm for the purposes of TV and film. There's the miniature rifle exemption, which, yes, now does require the gun to be on a under an RFD or a firearm certificate, but it allows people to take possession of that gun, not necessarily supervised either, for the purpose of target shooting. So there's all these different exemptions, and of course, it's not an exemption; it's just the law. Servants of an RFD are allowed to be in possession of any Section 1 or Section 2 firearm for the purposes of that business. A lot of the guns that I bought and we're using personally are actually used in Maglo. Like my 1522 is in plenty of product photos. It's actually what Connor's developed a lot of the products on initially. Okay, the Silver Pigeon not so much. That is more genuinely in storage until I get my certificates. But I have been shooting with it. Again, this is a funny thing. As a servant of an RFD, yes, I could go and test it and generate media for the company, even though we don't deal with over and unders. But the gun signed on, it's literally signed on about 6 different people's certificates. And of course, when you go to a club, where you go to a clay ground which has Section 11.7, I think it is. It has, basically, it's an approved clay ground by the chief of police. You're allowed to borrow a shotgun from somebody's personal certificates. So yes, there's plenty of other lawful There's plenty of mechanisms within law that allows people to take lawful possession of a firearm without having a certificate. Yeah, there we go. You got home from date night with Jill. Interesting. Some of you will get that. Mochaccino, have you reviewed the video for Sunday? It's Friday, mate. I've got a couple of days. I'm actually going to watch it. I almost got the tab up before the stream to make sure I remembered, but I didn't realize, Mocha, that you were going to come on and remind me directly. Yes, I will be watching that, and yeah, if it's any good, we'll put it out on Sunday. My Fiesta ST is the ultimate yobbo car, and I love it. It even came with a modified mil spec exhaust. When you say mil spec, you mean mil tech. If it's mil spec, is it 223 or 308? I swear it's mil tech. Anyway, we're talking about guns, so I'll forgive the faux on that. I love the ST. I genuinely, I think I love hot hatches. I do have a soft spot for hot hatches. You know, I had the Clio, I had a Clio 200 Cup. That I still don't think I've had more fun in a car. And for anybody that says that a front wheel drive car can't oversteer, you need to buy yourself a Clio Sport. I used to have people screaming in that car. Usually people scream when they're in the car, but when I'm driving. But the Clio, oh, you could have fun with that thing. It was all like, looking back, yeah, half the time it was like, this is the fastest I've ever been in anything. Oh my god! And like, I'm like doing 40 round a roundabout. And now I'm like, it's cute fun. It's just like, it's so like not dangerous. It's just so, it's quick, it's fun. You'll have a lot of laughs, but you'll never really go that fast to do yourself any damage. I stepped it up with the Type R FK2. That was, I say, a slightly more grown up version of a hot hatch. It did look like it had drifted through Halford several times, but again, that was good fun, but I still think I had more fun with the Clio. And then the GT4, don't get me wrong, the car is insane. I absolutely love it. I've never driven anything like it, and it does always put a smile on my face. But I still think the Clio was funner because I'm petrified of binning the GT4 most times. And all I can say is Michelin Cup 2 tires in about 5 degrees with a slightly damp road, yeah, that will put some hairs on your chest. That will definitely wake you up in the morning. Or torrential rain and standing water coming on the motorway. That, yeah, I've needed to change underwear. And that's where the Clio was always fun, because it never scared you. As well balanced and as fantastic as the GT4 is to drive, and it's not as dangerous cars go. It's not a TVR, but you still have to respect it. You can't you can't mess about too much in it. And because it's so much quicker than the likes of the Civic or the Clio, you don't feel you can use it half the time on the roads. Like, not fully, because you get very, very prison territory if you go to use that thing fully on the roads. Anyway, we've descended down into cars. This happens too easily. When the F do you stream on a Friday? Now. Yeah. What time do you call this, Dan? I know, Happy. Like, I'm sorry, Happy. You're gonna have to take the place of Supermod, because Dan is not. He's not filling his boots. Spot the American. Domo. Ownership, authority to possess. Speaking of certificates, has there been any updates? I think we talked about it last week. very much feels like I'm being given the runaround yet again. So quick update: wrote to the chief of police back in February. It got forwarded on to the new head of Hampshire Firearms, who took over the role in January. Apologized profusely and was like, look, give me six. No, that was it. She was like, we've just had a review meeting, like a management meeting. I need 6 more weeks. And I sort of went back and was like, well, hang on a minute. Yeah, department has had 40 months. What are you going to do in 6 weeks that the department hasn't been able to do in 40 months? No, I'm new to the role. I need, okay, fair enough. You only took the role up in the middle of January. I'll give you a bit more. Like, I think she'd literally only been in the role a month. So she was like, I want 6 more weeks to gather additional information, and then we get your answer. Like, okay. I was like, what additional information do you want? Because again, 40 months and a lot of work. One face-to-face interview and a written interview is in between that as well. And she was like, and I was like, look, if there's going to be no one better to provide you information about me than me. So can I get involved with that? And she was like, yep, no worries. We'll have somebody, one of our team contact you. 6 weeks goes past, no contact, no email, nothing, not even a missed call. So I email her, go, look, 6 weeks is up. Do you have a decision yet? Haven't been contacted. So I hope you've got the information that you wanted to, even though I haven't been able to have the opportunity to validate it or add to it or counter or whatever. And then she'd come back and go, oh yeah, no, I think I've made my decision. I just need to pass it over to our legal advisor for their opinion, which I sort of can see where this is going. And it's sort of like, well, hang on, well, but just make a decision. Like, just 40 months and you've had 6 weeks. And especially as since last February, I'd been waiting for somebody else in that department to obtain legal advice from their legal advisor. So I'd already been waiting, I'd been waiting 11 months before I sent the letter to the chief of police. So I think quite fairly and politely and respectfully went back and was like, well, hang on a minute. I'd already been waiting 11 months for the opinion of your legal advisor. Like, we really need to put a time limit on this. And she's come back and it's like, no, like, it's with them. We will get a response from them when they're ready. So once again, I'm in a holding pattern. They obviously don't have enough to feel confident without running it past their legal team to refuse the certificate. Or maybe I'm being a bit too harsh and she's going to approve them, but there's still liability on any decision that they make. So they want to make sure, even if they're giving me the certificates, that they're completely covered and there's no liability there. I don't know. But either way, as I've said, either I'm going to end up in court or I'll get certificates. At this point, I don't really care what. Like, if I go through the courts and the judge, magistrates, whatever it is, decides, nah, actually, still, I mean, I can accept it, because the courts should be impartial. They, there should be no prejudice there, and they should look at the merit of everything put in front of them and make a decision. So I could certainly accept that a lot more. I still really don't know how anybody is going to be able to sit there and explain that we've allowed this person to be a servant of 2 different firearms, registered firearms dealers for a period of 3 years in total, with unfettered access to large quantities of guns and ammunition, unsupervised unfettered access to large quantities of firearms and ammunition. Nothing bad has happened. No one's got hurt. And oh, look, he's grown a legitimate business in the meantime. It's almost like they're doing things right. I don't know how they're going to be able to say that on one side and go, but there's too many concerns for him to have a personal certificate. I mean, obviously, what I can see them potentially doing is wanting to remove me as a servant of the RFD, which will come as no surprise if they want to do that. Again, I have I certainly have maybe a little bit more optimism with someone new, someone fresh, somebody that should be, well, they should always be impartial, but someone with a fresh pair of eyes that doesn't have the history previously. But I don't know. I think we all feel in some ways that firearms licensing is sort of rigged against us, and I think I have more than enough to maybe think that there's maybe a little bit of personal vendetta from some individuals within that department against me. But that's the update. So again, I'm still waiting, 40 months and counting. I did actually put in my last email to her that I believe that my application is the longest in the history of Hampshire firearms licensing, and I believe now the longest standing application for the entirety of the country. I will be doing freedom of information requests, because if I can get some sort of reward out of it, that will be some sort of booby prize. It'll be like the wooden spoon. Guinness World Record. I've always wanted a Guinness World Record, just not necessarily for that. Guinness World Record for the longest firearm certificate application in the UK. What's the number plate looking like? It hasn't changed. Do I need to check the chat to make sure it's PG? Always. Nick, greetings from the great state of Michigan, USA. Keep up the good work. Thank you very much. Thanks for watching and appreciate the support. My mate's Fiesta ST is MILF spec. That needs to be another t-shirt. Not just the Fiesta, MILF spec. I'm having bad thoughts. I'm definitely having front page of the Guardian, sexist firearms dealer makes crude t-shirts. MILF spec. Oh, there can be a lot of fun with that. I've got to remember that. Next, this is what the channel is going to become eventually. It is literally going to be us coming up with funny ideas, making t-shirts, voting on the best designs for those t-shirts, and that's it. If that's how I end up making a living for the rest of my life, I will die a happy man. I took the ST for a test drive and nearly binned it the moment I got out of the dealership because I wasn't used to the turbocharged engine. I actually did the reverse. So my mum had a so while I was at uni, I was come home and I'd drive mum's car, and she had a Fiesta, wasn't an ST. And knowing that I was going to be coming home soon and I wanted my own car, the ST, I went and test drove it, and that's it. No, I nearly. So we got into the car to test drive it, and I nearly sent both of us through the windscreen with the brakes, because going from a bog standard sort of 1 liter Fiesta into a Fiesta ST with bigger, better brakes and all of that, they're a little sharper. So nearly sent us through the windscreen with that, but got used to it. Parked it up, no worries, took his details, got back into my mum's car, and then at the same set of roundabout, same set of traffic lights, nearly sent her car up the rear end of another car. Because again, I've been used driving around for half an hour with a car that weighs the same as a shoe with great big brakes on it. My mum's car weighed the same as a shoe, didn't have the great big brakes. I'm tempted to get my ticket back, drop it again, all before Callum gets his ticket back. It wouldn't be a difficult feat. A woman needing 6 weeks to make a decision. No jokes there. Absolutely. Especially when that woman is a big part of making a decision about my certificates. There will be no jokes. There will be no jokes. I'm thinking about jokes. There is something though. There is something. and I'm saving it. I think whether or not she approves the certificates or refuses them, the video will be shown. Uh, no, I don't have secret cameras. Like there is a video, and I'm just saving it. I am saving it for the right moment, and it will be glorious. 6 weeks to get our ducks in order. Yeah, pretty much. She's pretty much admitted, you know, the department's not where it needs to be. I'm here to clean it all up, but it doesn't happen overnight. And I'm not unreasonable. I'm like, I get it. You've inherited, you know, you've inherited a mess. It's not where it needs to be. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, and that sort of work isn't going to be done in a month or a few months. It's going to take quite a long time to get that department to where it needs to be. But I shouldn't have to be waiting for my certificates while you do that. You know, again, I could understand it if I was just, you know, an average Joe within the shooting community that was applying for their certificates, and they'd never heard of me and didn't know anything about me, and they weren't in a position to be granted certificates because there were some concerns that they wanted to investigate more. I get it. It's going to take a little bit longer, but it's not like they don't know me, right? It's and it's also combined. I work at a registered firearms dealer. I've worked for a registered firearms dealer since 2018, right? For 6 years. Granted, not over that whole time I've been a servant, but for half of that time I have been. It really has got down to the sort of just crux of it, of if there was an issue with me being around firearms, I think we'd already know about it. Like what am I gonna go and do when you give me certificates that I'm already not perfectly equipped and capable of doing? Like what are you trying to stop here? Like how is me not having certificates making the public any safer all the time that I have keys to an armory? And okay, well, we'd take away the servancy, and you know, you can't have access to that armory. Yeah, but I've had access for 3 years and there hasn't been a problem. Like this is the illogicality of it, and why I just have this feeling that at this point it's just personal. There's just people in there, and I have good evidence to, you know, to support that thought, that there are just people there with, you know, a vendetta against me, a personal dislike, or, you know, whatever. Or, you know, I'm flagged on some list or many, and yeah, especially going on Gun Trader, and they, you know, the higher ups really don't want. But you know, they tried, they took away the certificates, and they've tried keeping them away since, I think, in an attempt to shut me up. Well, it hasn't worked. I think technically Hampshire would get the Guinness World Records. Oh, they're going to take that too. Like this is the thing. Like this isn't. I know how this is going to sound. It's going to sound in a way like blackmail or a threat or whatever, and it's really not. But genuinely, I have towed the lines so well. Like genuinely, the sort of topics and conversations we have, and I try to be so measured and responsible about it. And certainly, you know, having the carrot of the certificates dangled permanently, it's like, yeah, I get it, right? Whether I agree with it or not, there's a line that has to be towed. There's a certain level that has to be upheld. Okay, there's been times where I've quite obviously gone over that, and I've been punished for it. And you know, and certainly I've paid the price and the consequences, and I've only got myself to blame for that. But I've headed in a completely different direction and adjusted and changed and grown and matured from that. If they decide to refuse, I don't really have I don't really have much incentive to be measured anymore. I don't have much incentive to avoid certain topics, avoid certain conversations, to not really tell it how I think a lot of people think it is. You know, so it's almost like, you know, if they're playing some sort of game to, you know, to measure what's discussed and what's promoted and advocated and all of that, then I'm running out of patience. And it's like, if I just get the feeling, oh, this is never going to happen, you know, oh, we want another 2 years of stability. I really don't really know how more stable I could be. It's like, no, like, I'm just, everything you do wrong, I'm going to publicize the years of records that I've kept and interactions and freedom of information requests and the information that is sent left, right, and center via email on a weekly basis about it, other individuals' interactions. Like, I just want to get on with things. I don't want to get into that. I want to promote the sport, get a little spicy every now and again, and just enjoy stuff. But if they're going to do their best to remove that, I'm going to have nothing. I'm going to have no other option than to just turn it into, you know, like, it's like the equivalent of the Basque bashing. You know, I don't know what they're trying to achieve by it. I genuinely don't. It's not about public safety. Again, I've got access to an entire armory any day of the week. So it's not about public safety. It's got to be more political. It's got to be more sort of bigger picture in a way. I genuinely can't think of any other logical reason, but I still don't know what they're trying to achieve by that. It's worked to this point, but like, there's no compromise now. Maglo, no compromise. There's no compromise now. It's like, you either give me the certificates or we go to court. And I now know the game in court is to make the other person look as bad as possible. Like, that's the only way you play the game in court, right? That's what they did to me, and I didn't do to them last time, and I lost. I've got 8 years worth of stuff. You know, that I've got some actually really concerning stuff that's been sent over the past couple of years, and that will be the game. That is what will have to happen. And previously, I've kept it quiet. You know, it took quite a while for me to talk about it on the channel because I was advised not to. That won't be the same next time. You know, like I'm telling you about every email now that I'm getting back and from, that is going to be the way forward. Like, I've got nothing to hide. I've got nothing to be ashamed of. I will just show. I will make it the court of public opinion, because why not? Like, it gets views, right? So anyway, could I become an FEO and approve Callum's FAC before they get round to it? Probably. And this is the real kicker. This is like the last, like, man on his knees, he's been kicked in his nuts while he's down. And the real cherry on top here is that I actually have a really good FEO. Like, I've seriously, I've not heard of anybody's FEO being as, for lack of a better phrase, cool as him. Right? He's just so chilled. You can have an adult conversation with him. Like, he's a shooter, previous firearms cop. Like, he knows what he's talking about. He's level-headed. You can have a conversation with him. He's not some clipboard wielding wanker, you know, that was bullied at school and now needs to, you know, be an FEO to make up for it. There's a few of them that I've met like that. He's genuinely cool, and I'm like, look, I've got like the best FEO I've ever heard of, and you still won't give me the certificates anyway. But whatever happens going forward, like, we will talk about it. Like, I'm not hiding anything anymore. And if it's made perfectly clear that that's it, I'm black marked for life, then there's no point me dancing around certain conversations anymore. You know, we will attack everything head on and, you know, discuss what we want to discuss again. You know, you don't have freedom of speech when you're a firearms certificate holder. I get that. I understand that. I'm not happy about that, but I'm willing to. You know, if I want that, I've got to do this. That's the way it is here. But if you're not going to give me that, I'm not gonna carry on doing this, you know. So I might go full Count Dankula, full libertarian. But anyway, on that note, and again, I'll just carry it. That's genuinely where I'm at. It's like, you know, all the times I'm biting my tongue, it's like I'm doing this to not, you know, annoy people. You know, I'm doing this for the greater good to get the tickets back. You know, which just seems to be a fruitless effort at the moment. But hopefully, you know, they're deciding to give it to me, and we can all just get on with life. That would be George Smith self-defense maybe back on the menu. Like that's the frustrating thing. Is like I don't feel I can even discuss that. Not even give opinion or promote or advocate stuff, right? Just even discuss that, like, is an issue for me. And it's like I'd rather not discuss it to not hinder my chance of application. But if they refuse it, it's like, well, I might as well discuss it then. You know, self-defense and concealed carry and all that is a massive part of firearms ownership across the world. Like, yes, it is. The channel's called EnglishShooting, but I go across the whole world. I go to countries all the time where it's lawful for you to be, you know, for all of that. Like, why wouldn't I discuss it? But I don't. Anyway, on that note, I've literally got 4% of battery on my Mac because Apple doesn't like unofficial. I've got an anchor charger, genuine, the expensive bit, right? The expensive bit, the charger module, the plug, genuine Apple. But because I'm using an anchor, non-official Apple lead, it won't charge the Mac. So my Mac's about to die battery. But there we go. Here we go. Oh, we should get PC. There we go. No. So on that note, before you all head off, hit the like button. Make sure you are subscribed. Thanks for joining. And I'm not gonna get into it. And it's not like I've necessarily been keeping it from people. I just, you know, personal life is personal life. I'd like to share as much as possible, but I also don't like to bore you with all personal. But it is quite unlikely that I will be doing a stream next week. I might get permission for the week after. We'll see how it goes. I don't know. I might even get permission for this Thursday, but I'm not counting on it. But on Tuesday, because it's scheduled, on Tuesday we will be welcoming in the future IPSC world champion into the world, as Holly will be giving birth or having taken out our first child. So I'll leave you all on that, and I don't know, maybe you'll never see me again. This is the downhill. I'll never have any spare time again. So it's a lot of the reason why I haven't been as regular over the past few months, but I'm sure it's going to come as a shock. But I'm still going to be doing the channel. I might just be babysitting at the same time going forward. So I may or may not see you this coming Thursday, but I will try and be back as soon as possible. But we're going to try and enjoy it as much as possible. But there we go, guys. Thanks for joining. Like and subscribe. And I need to take this off so it works properly. No, you're not, Arian. You cannot be trusted. But there we go. I hope you all have a fantastic week or couple of weeks, however long it is, and hopefully Arian can keep up the videos so that we can still get content on the channel. But there should be one on Friday if he's edited a decent video. But there we go, guys. Thanks as always. Hope you've enjoyed it, and of course, as always, I hope to see you soon.